It's November 26th here in Seoul, and I'm Kildunne. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with a potential Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire deal. U.S., Israeli, and Lebanese officials say a 60-day ceasefire deal is set to be sealed soon. The draft ceasefire agreement states the withdrawal of Israeli forces from southern Lebanon and Hezbollah's transfer of heavy weapons north of the Litani River. South Korea's ambassador to the U.S., Toit, has once again shown confidence in a strong Seoul-Washington alliance, noting that it will be maintained at its prime level under the incoming Trump administration. U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith filed motions to drop charges against President-elect Donald Trump related to election interference and mishandling of official documents, putting an end to the years-long legal battle between Smith and Trump ahead of Trump's inauguration in January. A ceasefire deal to end the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah appears to be imminent. The U.S. says it's pushing as hard as it can to reach an agreement, but also cautioned that it has not yet been finalized. Our Peunji reports.
The United States has said ceasefire talks to end the war in Lebanon are close to reaching an agreement. A State Department spokesperson said in a press briefing on Monday local time that it's pushing as hard as it can to get to a diplomatic resolution, but urged caution on optimism.
Look, we don't believe we have an agreement yet. We believe we're close to an agreement. We believe that we have narrowed the gap significantly, but there are still steps that we need to see taken.
Citing a source familiar with the matter, CNN said that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu signaled his potential approval for a ceasefire with Hezbollah with Israeli officials on Sunday night. Israel's cabinet is reportedly set to vote on the proposed deal on Tuesday. Reuters also reported that U.S. President Joe Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron are expected to announce a ceasefire in Lebanon soon, citing 4 senior Lebanese sources. But obstacles remain as reports that a deal was close were met with a mixed response in Israel. Far-right Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir called a U.S.-backed ceasefire deal a big mistake and said it would be a historic missed opportunity to eradicate Hezbollah. Residents of northern Israel, many of whom have been displaced by the conflict, have also reportedly expressed concerns about the potential deal. Another unresolved issue is that Israeli officials have demanded the freedom to strike Hezbollah as part of any ceasefire deal, in case the Iran-backed militant group violates an emerging agreement. But Hezbollah's leader has said it wants a complete ceasefire and protection of Lebanon's sovereignty. Eyes are now on whether the two sides will be able to reach an agreement to end more than 13 months of fighting that has killed more than 3,000 people in Lebanon. Peunji, Arirang News.
South Korea's ambassador to the U.S., Toit, says Seoul's primary focus is on continuing to develop its alliance with Washington, regardless of the presidential transition in the U.S. Speaking to reporters in Washington, D.C. on Monday local time, he said, the Korean government will work with the U.S. to ensure a strong combined defense posture, including extended deterrence. He stressed that the security situation on the Korean peninsula has drastically changed compared to the first Trump presidency, with the deployment of North Korean troops to Russia and the North's increasing threats toward South Korea. Special Counsel Jack Smith has decided to drop all federal charges against U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. The charges include Trump's mishandling of classified documents and his alleged role in attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. Isungja reports.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump defeated Kamala Harris during November's presidential elections to return to the Oval Office next January. The election victory may not be his only win, as his return to the White House means he's also set to see his legal issues disappear. This as Special Counsel Jack Smith has filed motions to drop all federal charges against Trump. The president-elect was first indicted in June 2023 on 37 felony counts related to his mishandling of classified White House documents that were found at his Florida residence. Despite a Florida judge dismissing the case, the special counsel's office sought an appeal. Trump was also indicted in August of that year on charges of attempting to reverse the results of the 2020 elections when he lost to President Joe Biden. The 4 felonies include conspiracy to defraud the U.S., conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of and an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. In a 6-page document submitted to a Washington, D.C. court, Smith included the reason for dropping the charges. He cited the Department of Justice's position that the case should be dismissed before the defendant takes office in accordance with the Constitution. The Department of Justice maintains the policy of not prosecuting a sitting president, viewing such move as interference with presidential duties. In the case of a sitting president, impeachment proceedings would replace indictments if necessary. Reports say Smith and his team will resign once Trump returns to office, but must give a full report on his investigation to the Attorney General before he steps down. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average jumped over 400 points on Monday on the back of President-elect Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary nomination. The Dow Jones rose 440.06 points, or nearly 1% on the day, to reach a new record high, after Trump nominated Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary. Bessent is widely considered as a more market-oriented and a deregulation advocate. He's also shown support for Trump's economic policy of gradual tariffs, all considered positive for the equity markets. While things are looking to settle down in the Middle East, things are not looking so bright for the Ukraine crisis, with Russia now threatening to deploy missiles in Asia if American missiles become present there. Let's turn to Professor Chen Jin for details. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So the warning came from Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, who said his country is considering the possibility of deploying medium-range and short-range missiles in Asia. The question is, why such a comment? Where is this possibility stemming from?
Yes, it is true. He said Russia might place medium and short-range missiles in Asia. And I think this shows Russia's growing worries about U.S. military actions in the region. So his warning comes as global security situation becomes more tense, and also reflects Russia's attempt to balance what it sees as a threat from the West. He also said that Russia's response would depend on where the U.S. places its missiles in Asia. And he made it clear that Russia is ready to take strong actions, such as deploying missiles in key areas of Asia. So I believe that Russia thinks that the U.S. military presence in Asia is a part of a larger plan to limit Russian influence in the region.
Well, Ukraine is also taking its own actions. Its special envoy to South Korea is reportedly visiting South Korea as early as this week, with the main purpose of convincing South Korea to provide Ukraine with lethal weapons. Professor Choi, what kind of weapons is Ukraine looking to acquire from South Korea?
Ukraine is asking for some advanced conventional weapons, and while the exact weapons are not confirmed yet, Ukraine may be interested in the K2 tanks and also K9 artillery system and also a Cheongung air defense system. So these weapons are highly advanced and very effective in modern warfare. The K9 tank is a very powerful, fast, and well protected, and making it great for ground battle. And K9 is an artillery weapon that can fire long distance with accuracy. And also Cheongung air defense system can highly improve Ukraine's ability to defend its skies from Russian missiles. So Ukraine wants this weapon to compete better against Russian forces, especially before Mr. Trump takes office in next January, because we are expecting some possible peace negotiation early next year. So before this possible peace negotiation, Ukraine hopes to regain some of its lost territory, and South Korean weapons will be highly valuable for Ukraine's needs.
Well, then what do you think is making South Korea maybe contemplate providing weapons to Ukraine at this point? Is it because of its relations with Moscow?
Yes. So South Korea is now rethinking its position on sending weapons to Ukraine for a few reasons. Because North Korea and Russia are now working more closely together, and which is a big concern for South Korea. And reports say that North Korea has sent large numbers of troops to help Russia in the Ukraine war and received military equipment in return. And this makes South Korea very worried about its own security. And also, South Korea sees some possibility of providing weapons to Ukraine as a way to protect its regional stability. The partnership between North Korea and Russia is a direct threat to peace in the Asia Pacific. And by supporting Ukraine, the South Korea can push back against this alliance and also show its support for global rules against illegal aggression. And I think these are the main reasons South Korea is now somehow considering this option.
Well, another thing is that Russia is also warning of, so-called stern actions if Seoul does give weapons to Ukraine. The question is, what kind of stern actions may be on the table, do you think?
Yes, Russia recently has warned South Korea that giving lethal weapons to Ukraine could lead to some serious consequences and harm their relationship. So while Russia has not given exact detail, it might take some steps like recalling its ambassador or sending South Korean diplomats back home. Russia could also impose some economic sanctions on South Korean companies doing business within Russia. So another possibility is that the Russia might work more closely with North Korea on military issues, such as providing some high advanced technology, such for nuclear submarine or more advanced ICBM missile targeting South Korea, and which could raise serious tensions in the region. So cyber attacks on South Korean system could also be a potential response. So these warnings from Russia show how careful South Korea needs to be in deciding its provision of lethal weapons to Ukraine.
South Korea is indeed in a tricky position at this point. Professor Choi, before I let you go, it's been a while since South Korea hinted at providing lethal weapons to Ukraine. The question is, will it ever happen?
Yes, South Korea has usually avoided sending weapons to active war areas like Ukraine because of its policy. But recently, North Korea's report and also assistance to Ukraine has made South Korea rethink its position, and the government has said it is considering all options, including providing weapons to Ukraine. And I think this decision might depend on what happens next in international politics. When the Trump administration starts in next January, peace talks led by the United States may begin to address the Ukraine war. So I think that South Korea might wait to see how these talks progress before deciding whether to send weapons to Ukraine. And this would allow South Korea needs to act in line with the United States and also NATO. So I believe we don't need to move faster than other international actors. So I think that watching and waiting before the Trump administration is a sensible strategy at this point.
Alrighty, Professor Choi, thanks so much for sharing your insight with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
The fifth and final round of UN plastic treaty negotiations have begun in South Korea's port city of Busan, in the final push to draw out tangible outcomes aimed at curbing global plastic pollution. An Sung-jin has this report.
220 million tons. This is how much plastic waste the United Nations Environmental Program estimates that the world produced in 2024. That's an average of 28 kilograms per person. From biodiversity loss to eventually harming human health, plastic pollution has become a pressing issue. That's why delegates from over 170 countries have gathered for the fifth and final round of the International Negotiating Committee. Previously held in Uruguay, France, Kenya, and Canada, the committee has made its final stop in Busan, South Korea, in hopes of settling on a strong treaty. In accordance with the aims of the committee's final stage, the Busan metropolitan government hosted events that promote awareness of the reduction and recycling of plastic.
Korea has an advanced system in terms of processing waste. The fact that it is being held in Busan is symbolic, not only because we are the maritime capital of Northeast Asia, but also because we are working on resource circulation and policies to further promote this.
It offers activities like making items out of recycled plastic and other ways that plastic can be put into effective use every day.
I'm interested in environmental issues, so it was meaningful for me to participate in these activities.
Ahead of the global treaty talks, hundreds of citizens also gathered to voice their demands.
I'm hoping that our country will pay closer attention to the voices of the citizens in order to collaborate on this global treaty.
What these people behind me are marching for isn't much. They're asking governments to sign and implement a strong and effective legally binding agreement to end plastic pollution. Most carbon emissions from plastics come from the production processes, and recycling isn't enough.
And we're demanding that our political leaders step up and show the courage to take bold action. Well, the plastic pollution crisis is affecting every single one of us on the planet, but unfortunately there's a handful of corporations that are dictating the terms of the health of future generations.
From citizens to national delegates, there are multiple stakeholders reaching for the same goal: the reduction of plastic. Reaching a consensus for a single global treaty may be difficult, but continuous efforts are necessary in our everyday lives. An Sung-jin, Arirang News, Busan.
Carrying a load of boxes and packages can especially be a hassle when they're heavy, and two, when you have to walk upstairs. Then how about a flying shopping cart that takes away all the stress? Yoon-jin has more.
Carrying boxes upstairs is part of a package courier's job. They use a cart for longer distances, but the actual moving of the packages requires manual labor. A team of local researchers has developed what's been named Palletrone, with a pallet for the placement for the objects that need delivery, which is moved by a multi-rotor drone, making it possible for the loading and delivery of packages without the need for wheels. This multi-rotor drone will try to keep its roll and pitch at zero to make sure the pallet remains as flat and stable as possible, and it relies on user touch to guide its direction of travel.
The Palletrone runs on an algorithm that allows it to differentiate between the force exerted by the cargo and the force exerted by a human. It also uses a compliant control algorithm that allows the loaded pallet to move stably in the direction the user intends.
A cargo load of up to 3 kilograms has been tested, which shows it can travel steadily when going up or down large stairs and even on soft surfaces where shaking would be usual. The research team added that the drone propellers have been hidden within the pallet frame to ensure their operation is safe from external impact.
More than a flying shopping cart of the future, we expect this technology to potentially be used to enhance safety in uncrewed flying taxis that carry humans.
The research team said that as much as this Palletrone can self-correct to stay level in flight, the team will further its testing and research for the drone to carry out precision tasks at piers or near wind turbines by adding arms. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Xiang. Good morning, Xiang.
Good morning, Dami.
Let's start in Uruguay, where presidential election results have come out, and it looks like the country's leftist opposition party candidate has claimed victory.
That's right, Dami. The official results of Sunday's second-round runoff have been announced, and the opposition candidate has secured the victory. Now, Yamandu Orsi from the centre-left Broad Front coalition secured the victory after a tight race against centre-right National Party rival Álvaro Delgado. Orsi, a former history teacher and the former mayor of Uruguay's Canelones department, won the runoff with 49.8% of the votes compared to Delgado's 45.9%. The president-elect said in an address to thousands of his supporters that he intends to build a more integrated society. Now, Delgado conceded defeat. 57-year-old Orsi pledged to tackle poverty and crime during his campaign, as well as avoiding tax hikes to lure in businesses and investors to promote faster economic growth. Now, following 5 years of conservative rule in Uruguay, Orsi's victory marks the return of a centre-left Broad Front party government, which previously ruled the country from 2005 to 2020. A tourist boat capsized off Egypt's Red Sea coast earlier Monday morning local time, leaving 16 missing. According to the Red Sea Governorate, the Sea Story luxury yacht was on a 5-day diving trip carrying 13 crew members and 31 tourists of various nationalities when it sank near the coastal town of Marsa Alam. The Governorate said 28 survivors have been rescued so far, and Egyptian armed forces have joined the rescue forces. The authorities said it is not yet clear what caused the yacht to sink, but high waves of 4 to 6 meters were forecast in the Red Sea on Sunday and Monday, leading the Egyptian Weather Agency to advise the suspension of all maritime activities. Now to Lithuania, where one crew member was killed and 3 others injured when a DHL cargo plane crashed into a house on approach to Vilnius International Airport in the country's capital on Monday morning. According to a statement from DHL, an aircraft of a third-party carrier under contract for DHL made a forced landing about 1 kilometer from Vilnius Airport at around 4:30 a.m. on Monday. Now, Lithuanian authorities said that an investigation is underway, adding that terrorism cannot be ruled out. In rugby, South African Pieter-Steph du Toit took home the World Rugby Player of the Year award for the second time on Sunday, while England's Kildunne won the Women's Player of the Year award. 32-year-old du Toit, who previously won in 2019, is the 4th man to be named Rugby Union's top player twice. France's Antoine Dupont and Australian Madison Levy claimed the 7th Player of the Year titles at the same ceremony in Monaco.
Unfortunately, we had a pass.
Rain clouds are dominating the entire country, dropping heavier rain in Gyeongsang-Namdo province with up to 60 millimeters in the forecast today. Other regions could see 5 to 40 millimeters of showers. However, southern provinces and Jeju could see rain letting up before noon, while central regions and Jeollabuk-do province could see on and off rain into tonight with a chance of rain turning to snow. And about the snow, the capital could see up to 10 centimeters of snow into Thursday, and east of Jeollabuk-do could see more than 15 centimeters of heavy snowfall. So please brace for some rough weather conditions for the rest of the week and do plan accordingly. And as there will be a dramatic weather shift during the day, we will be waking up to a low of 1 degree in Seoul with a high of 3 degrees Celsius tomorrow afternoon. A much colder afternoon is in the forecast for today with strong winds with a high of 9 degrees here in the capital, Daegu at 12 degrees, but still pleasant in Gyeongju and Busan at 16 degrees. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time.